Good morning. My name's Mark McClellan, and I'm the Vice President of Research and Innovation here at the University of North Texas. It is morning for us, but we know there are many of you around the globe joining us for the 3-minute thesis here. We are excited to be hosting this, and we're happy that you're going to be joining us and listening to these great presentations. But I wanted to start with some comments about the specialness and value of the 3-minute thesis. This is something that we believe wholeheartedly in, adds to the value of a graduate training, and prepares these young individuals for a future where they're able to talk about their research and engage in the public sector. One of the biggest challenges we have with our researchers is being passionate and focused on their research, but not taking the time to explain and share that vision and excitement with the general population. This is critical for our future. So the 3-minute thesis is our venue, our pathway into that. And we are hoping that many, many more colleges and many, many more departments here at the University of North Texas and many other schools around the globe joining us in this commitment. So we hope you enjoy the presentations. I promise you they'll be enlightening. I promise you they'll be challenging. They will be insightful, and they'll be a part of the future for you. So stay with us and enjoy the program.
Did he turn his mic off?
We're getting audio.
He's on the stick mic. No, he's not. He's on a wireless mic now.
Okay, I have
Ready,
three
Victor?
all the way up, and I'm not getting anything, so he must have turned it off.
I have a little word for him.
Ready, Victor?
You can.
Victor's up. You can put it.
Just turn up the Nats mic.
Ready, Devin?
That's your backup. Just turn up the Nats.
Devin, you're on.
I think I'm hearing it. Hey, I need you to go tighter on those shots. Like, what is this wide shot?
Ready, Ethan? Ethan, you're up.
Hey, Devin, shoot tighter. You only go that wide when they're gonna do a presentation. Do you have his levels, Michaela, or not?
Yeah, we do.
And that brings people to the university to come and see what is happening on our campus. That's not an option. Because it's going to be one more course that students have to take, one more course that they have to pay for, and that affects our time to degree. So what's the solution? And this is where the 3-minute thesis comes in. Wouldn't it be great if that was a fun event that did not require faculty to prepare, that did not require students to register for and take, that did not add to their time to degree, and more important, that brought the community into the university to get a view, to get some glimpse of what is happening on our campus for research. Enter the 3-minute thesis competition. This program started at the University of Kingston in 2008. It requires students to talk about their research, which they have completed frequently over years, using one slide in 3 minutes. No animations, nothing. And all they have to do is to communicate about their research in a way that is meaningful, that is clear, using non-technical language, so that the non-expert can understand. And that's exactly what the 3-minute thesis is about. At UNT here, we've been doing this since 2015, and every year we have 2 competitions. Fall is for doctoral students, spring is for master's students. The winner from our competition goes on to the Council of South compelling, persuasive manner so that the public can understand what's going on. And our students will leave UNT not only excellent producers of research, but excellent communicators of research. Welcome to the 3-minute thesis competition. Now, you're going to hear the students as they talk about their research that they have done using one slide. I don't have a slide. They're going to use one slide to talk to you persuasively and meaningfully about their research. Thank you very much for hearing me. Mike, take it over.
Thank you, Dr. Obama. And hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 Fall 3MT Doctoral Competition. First, I'd like to recognize any faculty members that are in the audience and ask you to rise. And I'd also like to recognize our representative from the Graduate Student Council, President Andrea Ortiz.
Faculty, please rise.
Excellent, thank you all very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an exciting interactive event that allows you to vote for your favorite contestant in the form of the People's Choice Award. When you open your program, you'll notice a ballot to cast your vote. Please hold on to that ballot until all contestants have completed their presentations. The 3-minute thesis competition is based on two very broad categories. The first is comprehension and content, and the second, engagement and communication. The first refers to the student's ability to explain their dissertation research in a clear and effective manner. The second deals with the stage presence and the contestant's ability to grab your attention. Our judges will be watching the contestants and scoring them on a scale of 1 to 10 in each category. First place winner will take home $1,000. The runner-up receives $500, and your vote will decide the People's Choice Award for $250. With that, I'd like to introduce our judges. Seated in the center of the room, we have Raghav Nargotra, Analytics Manager. If you'll just stand and wave at people. Yep, I'm going to make you get up. Thank you. There he is. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Tammy Kesterkey, Customer Service Engineer. Margarita Wilshire, Senior Manager for Customer Support. Deanna Sanchez, Alteryx Ace and Director of Kiris Consulting. And our lead judge, who has been a steadfast supporter of the 3MT competition, having been with us from the beginning, Mr. Mike Lands from Mike Lands Engineers. And now it's time to invite our first finalist to the stage. First up is Amanda Jackson with the College of Education in the Department of Higher Education. The title of the presentation is Forging Pathways to the Community College, a Study of Individuals with Intellectual Disability. Amanda, come forward.
Let's talk diversity and inclusion, or rather, let's talk the lack of inclusion when it comes to one particular student population, a population that was denied public education until the 1970s and since has been educated in predominantly segregated settings, only to end up, well, unprepared for college and faced with an 89% unemployment rate. Unemployed, isolated, sounds a lot like 2020. However, these words could describe their lifetimes. So who am I speaking about? I'm talking about a population that at one point or another, someone probably told you not to stare at. I'm talking about individuals with intellectual disability. And this segregated school to unemployment pipeline dominates in our society for this population. However, there are some families and students who have made their own pathways to self-actualization, which included going to college with preference for the community college. So what I did in my research is I looked at 5 of these families, and what I found was 4 things that enabled these pathways to be built: accessibility, pathway knowledge, support, and value-driven grit. Accessibility was unique to the community college. No SAT scores needed. An array of classes and programs made it academically accessible. However, since this population also typically doesn't have a driver's license and will live at home with their families, these community colleges are also physically accessible because they were right there in their communities. With support was predominantly provided by parents and guardians, but there are also other services, government services, and supports from the community college itself. And these were in areas of academics and transportation or navigation. Pathway knowledge was an interesting one. Each and every parent and legal guardian had been to college themselves. And some of them even went to that same community college that the student would later attend. What this meant is they knew how to build pathways to college. And they had the awareness that the community college was academically accessible. Last, but one of the strongest themes was value-driven grit. These individuals and families had values of inclusivity and education, which resulted in long-term goals such as going to college. However, because of a number of obstacles against these individuals, reaching that goal required sheer grit. Now, you're probably here today saying, well, that's great, but I don't work in education, so what does this have to do with me? Well, you can support inclusion in your everyday life. So when you see my daughter at college in the next couple of years, you can continue to not stare, but she and I would prefer that you go and say hi.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next presenter is Rasarta Kresnicki with the College of Engineering in the Department of Computer Science Engineering. The title of the presentation is Building Reliant Systems via Detection of Speculative Quality Concerns Across Artifacts.
Imagine waking up in the morning only to find out that 2 airplanes have crashed and 300 passengers passed away. How dreadful news. And you may be wondering, how is this even possible? The airplane's always supposed to be safe. But just as airplanes and any other applications, they are built by humans themselves. And therefore, they have to be, there's a certain level of uncertainty in that process. So for applications such as pilots, software system, software developers, software architects, and safety experts gather information such as requirements when they're building a software. Usually these requirements provide information such as how the system should behave, how the system should work, what the system should do. So all these information are critical. And amongst those information, each of these documents provide a list of requirements such as concerns related to safety, to usability, to security, and so on. And software developer, on the other hand, has to meticulously read all of these requirements and then has to address and translate this information into a language that computer understands. However, what happens in this process is that the software developer may encounter a problem with the first requirement that says that an autopilot system shall fly their airplane by ensuring that no collision occur. What is the problem here? So the 3 keywords, no collision occur, usually brings here a speculation. The software developer may now make assumption about these 3 words. In order to avoid this from happening, this is where my research comes in. In my research, I try to build a system or a software that is supposed to avoid any speculation from occurring. And so in the process of thinking. So what I really do in my research is build a tool that is supposed to do two things. First, it's supposed to detect all the incomplete, inconcise, and vague content from these requirements. And then the second, it's supposed to provide additional information so that the software developer who is reading these requirements will know next what he's supposed to do exactly. In the case of the collision, he will be prompted with another warning message that specifically tells the developer what he needs to do in the software. Specifically, he will provide information that for collision to not occur, he needs, the airplane needs to react immediately with, once the another airplane is in the close vicinity of 1,000 meters. This way, my research is intended to provide ways how to address safety concerns, and I leave you with a quote by one of the CEO, Paul O'Neill, that says safety is not, shouldn't be a priority, it must be a precondition. Thank you.
Thank you, Rizardo. Judges, let me give you a few moments to collect your thoughts on the last two candidates, and we'll bring up the next candidate. Once again, thank you, Rizardo. Next is Cheng Yin with the College of Health and Public Service in the Department of Rehabilitation and Health Services. The title of the presentation is Dementia, COVID-19 Risk Factors in Long-Term Care Homes.
Is investigating the risk factors that made dementia patients in long-term care hospitals more vulnerable to COVID-19. Long-term care hospitals are vulnerable places for the spread of COVID-19, and the mortality rates among COVID patients with dementia is 4 times higher than the COVID patient without dementia. The dementia patients in long-term care hospitals is so vulnerable to COVID-19. The question I'm investigating is whether I can find a way to protect them from COVID-19 in long-term care hospitals. These hospitals have been following the CDC guidelines, such as wearing masks and keeping social distance. However, we need to know that these people have a memory loss, and that's very difficult for them to follow these guidelines. Therefore, I researched the risk factors that made dementia patients in long-term care hospitals more vulnerable to COVID-19. In my research, I selected 2 groups of people with dementia in Texas long-term care hospitals. The first group is a pre-pandemic dementia group, which was selected before the pandemic in Texas long-term care hospitals. And this is our baseline group. The second group is COVID-19 dementia group, which was selected during the pandemic in Texas long-term care hospitals. Once I selected 2 groups, I compared the following risk factors: demographics, chronic comorbidities, and rare diseases. I then tabulated the results of comparison to identify the contribution of each of the risk factors. For instance, the Hispanic dementia patients were impacted much more severely by the COVID-19 than the white dementia population. I'm so excited by the prospect that these projects will allow long-term care hospitals to identify the dementia patients who are more vulnerable to the likelihood of COVID-19. And this will allow them to implement protocols to reduce the likelihood of being infected. Thanks.
Thank you, Ching. Our next presenter is Zach Bund with the College of Education in the Department of Education Leadership. The title of the presentation is Cultural Equitability of Restorative Practices in Texas Schools.
We have a discipline problem in our schools. And that problem is that the primary tool we use for discipline is removing students from the classroom. In most schools, that takes the form of in-school and out-of-school suspension. Realistically, how much learning do you think takes place during a suspension? The answer is not much. And we compound that problem by using this punishment disproportionately with our students of color. I want to look at the discipline system in schools, how equitable it is for different cultures, and if it's working. Not just if it's being applied equally. There's plenty of research that shows that's not the case. It also doesn't seem to be changing student behavior, so it's really more punishment than discipline. Now, I'm not the first one who's had these thoughts. That's where restorative practices like positive behavior intervention and support and social emotional learning come into the picture. These restorative practices are designed to help students figure out how they ended up in trouble in the first place and what to do about it if they find themselves in similar circumstances in the future. And it works. You don't have to take my word for it. The research shows that these methods do reduce the number of incidents of student discipline. There's issues though. Most of the research assumes that schools are a homogeneous population, and that's rarely, if ever, the case. Most schools are melting pots with students from diverse backgrounds. Can restorative practices really work with all of these students equally? The answer is yes and no. Restorative practices as a general model are definitely a fluid system that are able to adapt to most cultures. The problem comes in when this fluid system is implemented by real live, actual humans who have had a cookie cutter training and who often mistake equality for equity. Response to restorative practices can also be predicted along ethnic and racial lines. The students who are responding well to traditional discipline, which predominantly are white and our Asian students, also respond well to restorative practices. There's also a growing body of work that shows how to adapt these practices to work effectively with Black students. The problem, from my perspective, is that most of the extant research assumes that these restorative practices, adaptations that work for Black students, are equally successful for any other subpopulation. In my experience as a teacher and administrator in Title I schools in Texas, that's not the case. I'm going to look at discipline data in pairs of schools. Ones that have an active social emotional learning culture and some that use traditional discipline models to see how Latinx students interact with those methods. Specifically, I want to see if it reduces their days out of placement, and if it does, if it's in similar ways to what we're seeing with our non-Hispanic white students and our black students. If it turns out that being Hispanic is an indicator for days out of placement, I've opened the door for future research to figure out why that might be and what to do about it in the future. We need to do more than just address culture. We need to honor culture in our schools. My research will provide context that will allow us to figure out how to work with our Latinx students instead of imposing discipline on them. Once we know better, we have to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Is Domjamut Alamo with the College of Science in the Department of Chemistry. The title of the presentation is Phosphorescent Quantum Bits.
So from popular media, we have seen simulation of the real world, like The Matrix or Ready Player One movies. And technology advanced so quickly that simulation of that kind might be a reality soon. But to be able to simulate at that level, a high fidelity simulation, we will also need to be able to simulate the atomic and molecular level. We're talking about the quantum world. In that world, phenomena seem to happen randomly, not ruled by our understanding of classical physics, but more to the kind of quantum mechanics dominated by randomness. Nevertheless, scientists have tried to simulate the behavior of atoms and molecules with some degree of success for many years. Limited by the power of classical computers, making calculations using bits, zeros and ones. But they are exact and leave nothing to randomness. Even when a programmer tries to simulate a random number, it's not actually random. It's fake. It's just so well designed that it looks random to us. So a quantum computer solved this problem by also simulating the phenomena that occurs in the quantum world using a quantum process. It makes sense. A quantum system for a quantum phenomenon. So how does a qubit work? Well, just like flipping a coin. While a coin is in the air, it is both head and tail at the same time. We call that a superposition of states. Then the coin chooses to become one or the other, just like our zeros and ones on a qubit. A system like this one will be powerful for simulation of quantum, physical and chemical phenomena, like, for example, mapping of the COVID virus, or encryption that will be truly random, so the output will be impossible to decipher. Also, true AI that will think less like a computer, more like a human. So researchers around the world have been able to successfully build quantum computers based on qubits, but they do require extreme conditions, like absolute zero temperature or big, high powerful laser to keep them stable since they are so delicate. So my approach was to choose a robust quantum phenomena that occurs at room temperature, known as phosphorescence. I simulate the behavior or photophysical behavior of molecules using a supercomputer. A photon, a light particle, excites a molecule, pushing it to a high excited state, and then just like a coin attracted by gravity, it must come down. So we split the ground state into two using a magnetic field, forcing the molecule to choose between two paths, a yellow light that will give us our zeros, and a red light that will give us our ones, just like a qubit. And this is the basic of my qubit system, one that could possibly power your the next simulation, virtual reality simulation, in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. We'll give the judges just a few minutes and we'll call up the next presenter. Is Meng Ren in the College of Music in the Department of Music Theory and Ethnomusicology. The title of the presentation is Forbidden Sound, the Art, Culture, and Politics of Chinese Hip Hop.
Imagine this. After the urban rush hour succeeding the Forbidden City's smoggy dusk, along the 700-year-old Yuan Dynasty city wall, a crew of young, budding, freshly dressed rappers start to congregate for what is known as the Golden Mantle Cipher. Yes, there were surveillance cameras above them on the streetlights, but as the organizer Lao Zhao had thoroughly investigated beforehand, this secluded area would attract no police attention. Around the world, hip-hop has been used as an artistic means to achieve political ends. It is the voice of resistance, a way to unite people and to substitute violence with battles of dance and rap. In China, hip-hop has a more vital role to play. It gives the marginalized a voice to express their dissatisfaction, their political alienation, and their hope for freedom, for equality and democracy. What does China mean to you? A growing international rivalry, or perhaps a threat to America's ruling ideology? To the Chinese people, and I mean the everyman, the government's absolute control to people's lives poses the same tensions internally. And hip-hop is a channel to negotiate these tensions in a carefully creative voice, in puns, fables, and acrostic poems, on the bathroom doors in the short-lived art of graffiti, and in hand signs and friezes on the dance floor as the B-boys and B-girls battled gravity, as inescapable as our indoctrination. My dissertation is the first full-length work on Chinese hip-hop, aimed to let the world know about the sound and endeavors of a tyrannized generation and how this generation communicates with the world culturally. I will answer fundamental questions such as who are the first people in this movement, and that calls for a historical examination, and also what does Chinese hip-hop sound like, and that calls for musical and literary analysis. But don't forget, the very experience of producing music is fun, as stated by one of the most ignored hip-hop creeds, having fun. I conceptualize the essence of play, also known as the theory of homo ludens, as well as the innovations of the players in Chinese hip-hop. Ultimately, Chinese hip-hop is a very unique case, precisely because of the peculiar complexity of China's social complex. My dissertation will not only contribute to this worldwide hip-hop studies discourse, but will also reveal how this one bold and daring art form quests for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Our next presenter is Supina Damira Silva of the College of Science in the Department of Biological Sciences. The title of the presentation is The Effects of Prior Informal STEM Experiences on Undergraduate STEM Identity.
I feel totally unprepared. I don't think I can do this anymore. Sorry. That may be what you felt if you entered college unprepared. Many students enter college feeling confused and insecure about their academic preparation. They feel that, I'm not ready. I can't do this. So some of them give up and drop out. They don't complete their freshman year. It gets worse. The dropout rates for students in science, technology, engineering, and math are the highest of any other college major. These majors, science, technology, engineering, and math, are known as STEM majors. STEM. STEM education is the key to a country's economic growth. It's critical that we reduce STEM major dropouts. Thankfully, there are some factors that can indicate college STEM success. For example, formal factors such as students' high school GPA, their high school rank, have been shown to act as indicators of college STEM success. There are some informal factors as well, which enhance success by increasing their confidence. That's where my research comes in. My research looks at the effects of prior informal STEM experiences, such as science camps, STEM clubs, on undergraduate STEM identity. STEM identity? STEM identity is developed by knowing and using science. It is less a question of what you see in me, but more a question of how I see myself. STEM identity plays a powerful role in academic success. In my research, I'm asking UNT STEM freshmen 2 questions. 1, what informal STEM experiences did you have before you joined UNT? And 2, how long were you involved in these experiences? Then I'm measuring their STEM identity in terms of their academic expectations and their perceived competence in STEM. I'm expecting my research to reveal that students with more informal STEM experiences to have stronger STEM identities than those who've had little to no such experience. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. But wait, informal STEM experiences can provide you the preparation that Benjamin Franklin prescribed. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Subuni. Give the judges just a moment. We'll bring up our next presenter. Our next presenter is Yunha Young from the College of Information in the Department of Learning Technologies. The title of the presentation is Back to School During the Pandemic.
The COVID pandemic changes everything, including education. For teachers, preparing to teach children during the pandemic, it was impossible. How do you prepare to teach children in a virtual format when we have never done that? How do you prepare for back to school with children? As an educator and a student myself, I was thinking about what teachers need to prepare for back to school for their children to be successful, and what things are on their minds. I thought about doing the survey for teachers and finding out their concerns and their plans for addressing the problem. However, there were so many issues that it was impossible to address all of those in the survey that have sufficient input to generalize. Then I remembered the new technology, Twitter. There are several things that people are talking about on Twitter every day. So if there was a way to analyze the tweets about back-to-school preparation, it would be just exactly what we need. However, there is a problem. Twitter has so much information on it. How do you analyze the tweets to find relevant information that understand what our teachers need to prepare for back to school and what their major concerns are? Now, this is where my research comes in, and let's see where we are right now. To discover the information from tweets, I used a new research method, test mining. It can automatically find useful information from a tremendous amount of tests. Despite the many advantages of test mining, I didn't find any research that applies test mining to educational topics. I used test mining to analyze tens of thousands of tweets and generate insights from them. The findings show that not just the educators, some people unrelated to education are also involved in the back-to-school preparation during the pandemic. We need to include information on them. Additionally, my research also generates 4 topics summarizing discussion holistically. I believe my research will provide new insights into back-to-school preparation in a pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Yunha. Give the judges a moment. Our next presenter is Maheshwari Misa with the College of Engineering in the Department of Materials Science Engineering. The title of the presentation is A Materials Scientist's Approach to Superior Aircrafts.
Hello everyone. Here's a small story about my friend Jane. Last Thanksgiving, she wanted to visit her parents in Connecticut. Jane, being an international student, she was all lonely throughout the semester. So she was very much looking forward to meet her parents, but the flight tickets were so costly that she couldn't afford to buy them. So she approached the airlines and asked, what's the reason for these flight tickets being very high? So the airline says that the maintenance of these aircrafts is very expensive. And the following are the 4 factors that influence the price of your flight ticket. Firstly, the fuel consumption. Second, the lifetime of the aircraft. Third, the ease of manufacturing of the aircraft. Fourth, the rate at which the maintenance must be done for an aircraft. So, by far, the material science and the engineering department decides the price of your aircraft. So let me tell you how. Firstly, it is required for us to select a suitable material to build an aircraft. Commonly, titanium, aluminium, and steels are used for building these aircrafts. Titanium having the highest strength to weight ratio, that is, for every unit of titanium, it has higher strength, which means it takes very less fuel. Second, from the graph, we can see that the titanium has higher strength, so the lifespan of the aircraft increases. Third, the ease of manufacturing. Being here, the elongation of titanium is very high. Elongation, that is, the ability to stretch the metal is very high so that you can form very complex shapes easily. The corrosion resistance, that is, the amount of degradation is resisted by titanium, so the aircraft's maintenance is less frequent. So, in my research, I use very sophisticated computational methods to see by adding different elements into titanium to increase all these properties. This adding of other elements into titanium is called alloying. So what I do is, when we have good neighbors, we have stronger bonding. In the similar way, when you consider one atom of a metal and the other atom of another metal, and the interactions between them and the stronger bonds increase the strength of the aircraft. By studying these interactions between the metals, I developed different alloys, that is, mixing titanium with different type and different amounts of metals and getting a good strength and good elongation to build very superior aircrafts, so that the price of the flight tickets gets lower, and thereby our friend Jane could visit home at an affordable price. Thank you.
Thank you, Maheshwari. We'll give our judges just a few moments, and we'll introduce our next candidate. Our next presenter is Kay Lester with the College of Science in the Department of Environmental Science. The title of the presentation is Misspecification and Marginalization, Reframing the Intersection of Suicide and Race Ethnicity.
In 1878, a catastrophic yellow fever epidemic swept through the city of Memphis, Tennessee. Many people fled to the countryside, where they proceeded to die at an astronomical rate. See, at the time, it was thought that yellow fever was caused by bad city air. The idea of a mosquito-vectored illness hadn't occurred yet. So people didn't know that fleeing into a swamp was the absolute worst thing they could do. Yellow fever is now a distant memory, but we still have plenty of blind spots in our understanding of health. My dissertation addresses one of these modern-day blind spots through the lens of suicide. See, in the United States, we have very limited mental health data. The most comprehensive and detailed data we have is on suicide mortality, but there's a catch. Mental illness is equal opportunity, but white Americans are 2.6 times more likely to commit suicide than the rest of the population. So, if we use suicide rates to diagnose communities with high mental distress, attention and resources are inadvertently directed into white communities. Minority-majority communities with poor mental health and high suicide rates remain invisible. In practice, this means that we have diverse communities across the United States that do not receive the resources that they desperately need. From a research perspective, this distortion in the data prevents us from adequately analyzing the community drivers of mental distress and self-harm. So moving forward, we need a better way of incorporating diverse population structures into our analysis. Drawing on traditional methods of medical geography and cutting-edge simulation technology, I've created a toolbox for identifying these distortions in all kinds of data. The two maps behind me were actually created using the exact same suicide data set. But these new lenses that I've developed reveal previously hidden pockets of minority distress in the map on the left. My methods can identify potential confounding issues long before they become dangerous blind spots. After all, we don't want to send anybody into a mosquito-infested swamp. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And once again, we'll give our judges just a few moments to contemplate and to score. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more presenter today, and that is Ambarish Kumar with the College of Science in the Department of Biological Sciences. The title of the presentation is Detection of Horizontal Gene Transfer Events.
Antibiotic resistance is posing a global threat for the public health, food security, and development today. Scope of the problem can be realized and felt that 23 million cases of antibiotic resistant is found in US itself. 33,000 deaths each year it witnessed into the same country. Moreover, in 2017, a single disease, that is the infection of the colon, large intestine, is found to be 2,23,900, and 13,000 deaths were reported into the same disease. It was caused by a single bacteria. We fought a long battle against the tuberculosis, gonorrhea, or pneumonia. Those are the chronic illnesses. We spent decades of work and efforts to develop antibiotics to cure those chronic illnesses. But we are at the worst of losing those combat. A single bacteria is becoming a monster and posing threat to the public health and making all efforts futile and just becoming a monster in front of 21st century human being in front of us. Worsening situation indicates we are shallow and peripheral in finding the root cause of the disease, root cause of the problem. Let's arrive deeper at the genetic information of the species or the organism. That is the genome. In my research, I tried to find out the genetic cause of the antibiotic resistant at the genome level. And we tried to build a framework and get deeper insight of the genome of antibiotic bacteria and fungi. Let's try the event or the phenomena with an analogy. In peer group, we grow together. We interchange or exchange the personality traits from each other. In the same way, in the mutualistic and the symbiotic evolution, bacteria has acquired genetic elements or genetic elements from each other. Studies suggest that those genetic elements acquired throughout the evolution is posing the same is just contributing to the antibiotic resistance or other disease-causing attributes, that is pathogenicity or virulence attributes. In my impact of my research will not be limited to human being. It will encircle the other agricultural sector, that is the farm-based animals and crop plants. We will be going to contribute in public health and food security just by engineering some model organisms, alga, for increased biofuel production, or crop plants for enhanced food yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Amaresh. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, now that all the contestants have presented, we're going to ask you to vote for the People's Choice Award. That ballot is located in your program. In addition, we have a special treat for you. The Graduate Student Council has generously provided refreshments just outside the tunnel doors. So as you complete your ballot, we'll have a representative at the doors as you exit. And we are going to ask you to exit for a few moments to allow us to sequester the judges and allow them to get their thoughts and comments together. And we ask you to enjoy those refreshments, and we'll come out and collect you shortly. You'll vote and then enjoy refreshments. I believe there's coffee and pastries outside. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the refreshments that were provided by the Graduate Student Council. How'd that go? Excellent. Thank you very much. As our custom, we always invite the lead judge to come down and share with the audience and with the participants the things that they observed and a few constructive criticisms as well. And so I'd like to invite Mike Land to come over and visit with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You guys did a fabulous job today. I can tell you the conversation with the judges, this was the first event that they've judged. They were very impressed with all of the presentations, your professionalism, your articulation, your academic credibility. And I can say that every year that I've been involved in this, all of the competitions that I've been involved in, I was always impressed, and this year as well, as to how quickly, how much you advance, the degree of advancement in such a short amount of time. We can tell you that you guys have worked really super hard on this. Very good. It's a great way to spend a Saturday morning. It's inspirational to all of us that come out here and watch you guys compete. It's very good. As Dr. Opong mentioned at the beginning of the competition, there's three things that really come out of this. One of them is job interview skills. Another one is professional advancement when you're speaking at various symposia and professional announcements that you guys make, and also just your scholastic ability to communicate. You got to be able to talk to lay people about what you're doing, and you guys have really mastered that. It's really a great job. Let's give everybody a hand. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Opong now. Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you very much for joining us with this. As I pointed out before, the Toulouse Graduate School wants to run this program to help our students to learn to communicate their research effectively. The other part is to try to bring the community into the university. We are a Tier 1 research university. We're doing fantastic research. But frequently, the community doesn't know what's happening. When you came in this morning, you see the variety of research that's happening across the university. And we're hoping that through this, there will be a stronger interaction between the community and the university, so that the university is no longer just an ivory tower. Of course, so proud of our students and their accomplishments. And once again, let's give them another hand of applause. Now, this event here was generously supported by our Graduate Students Council. And so, President Ortiz, please come in and say thank you to our people and to the students.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Graduate Student Council, my name is Andrea Sasha Ortiz. I'm president of the Graduate Student Council. On behalf of the Graduate Student Council, I'd like to personally thank a couple of people, because here we love to show gratitude. First of all, I'd love to thank our volunteer people, Ms. Valerie Estridge and other people on our committee, Senator Rachel Gain. I'd like to thank our MC, Mr. Mike. He did a great job as well. And we'd love to also would show utmost gratitude to Toulouse Graduate School and Dr. Joseph Opong for his support of 3MT and his tireless commitment to scholarship on this campus. Most importantly, we'd like to thank the 3MT committee, who may not all be here today, NTTV for putting on a great production. You guys did an awesome job as well. And most importantly, our guests. Cheers to scholarship.
President Ortiz, thank you very, very much for those kind words. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Mike, are you ready? Mike is going to come and announce the judges for the fall 2021 3MT competition.
As we make the announcements, Doc is going to stay up on the stage and shake your hand. We're going to do photographs after the event, if you will, so that it's not on the live stream itself. We'll be able to turn off the lights and what have you. So I'm going to ask the contestants to remain after we make this announcement. All right, you ready? Drum roll? Where's the drum roll? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the People's Choice Award goes to Rezarta Kresniki. Come on up. You did a wonderful job. Stay with Doc just a moment. We're going to ask you to remain. Today's runner-up is Meng Ren. Come on up. And congratulations. And today's, you're all winners. I have to say that, but I do mean that. And I've had an opportunity to do this now for about 3 years. And thank you for having me back. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of today's competition is Supini Darmira Silva. We'd like to thank you all for coming. We'd like to invite you to come back in the spring, but I believe Doc has a few things. Oh, yeah, the judges.
Mike?
Sorry about that. Bring the judges forward, please. And Sapuni, I think you need to be on the other end of that check. And don't let them take it back. You need to hold on to it and take it home. Put that on the wall. I will. We will get a picture. We need to wrap up the live stream. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up the live stream. We're going to do pictures with this group and then invite the rest of the contestants on up. We'd like to invite you back in the spring for the master students of the UNT 3MT competition. Once again, thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Saturday morning.